When you think of a desert, you don't expect life to be easy. It's hot and dry, so even growing food should be out of an option in usual circumstances. But experts in Saudi Arabia figured out a way. Get ready to learn about the country's famous agricultural transformation. Welcome to our channel, Nature Unraveled. Today we'll take a look at the different techniques Saudi Arabia uses to save and increase food production to maintain its status as an exporter. And of course, we'll also learn about the country's center pivot irrigation system, which allows the desert country to farm. When you hear about Saudi Arabia, the first picture that comes to mind is that of a hot, arid land, and you wouldn't be wrong in your assumption, as most of the country is indeed a desert. It has a dry and hot climate, and most of the land is arid and infertile. A large area is covered with the Rub Al Khali, a desert that encompasses over 650 cubic kilometers as part of the Arabian Desert. You can get an idea of exactly how hot the country's weather must be from this fact. There's no permanent river, and the rainfall has never exceeded 150 millimeters in the country's history. Before things changed, only 400 square kilometers of its land was fertile, which is hardly 14% of the entire area. But despite all the limitations that come with an unfavorable climate, Saudi Arabia has come a long way from where it once was, and all of it was thanks to one stroke of luck that changed everything forever. You can imagine a country's dire straits when they had no farmlands. 0.5% isn't enough to feed an entire population, and many people used narrow coastal strips to plant local crops. The rest of the food had to be imported, which was extremely expensive and a burden on the economy. But in March 1934, large amounts of crude oil were discovered in an oil dam that went as deep as 1440 meters, estimated to be around 75 million barrels of oil. This discovery meant that the country now held 17% of the world's discovered oil reserves. It gave them access to unprecedented amounts of capital, which meant they could focus on increasing food production using methods that would otherwise be too expensive. Keep watching to find out how Saudi Arabia used this opportunity to turn luck around completely. Every country needs a main trade. Agricultural countries are usually self-sufficient when it comes to food, but those with arid climates must find something to rely on, and for Saudi Arabia it was oil. One thing's for sure, the opportunity was used well. In the years to come, the country was able to transform from a food importer to a food exporter by increasing agricultural production in innovative ways. The government started a set of strategic plans that worked towards self-sufficiency. First, the government invested heavily in the dairy and meat industry and moved towards fish farms by making use of the coastal regions. As the imports decreased, the capital was also funneled towards agricultural technology that would be required to turn infertile land into farmland. After all, it's an extreme transformation that could not happen overnight. But wait till you find out exactly how successful these efforts were. The first focus when it came to crops was wheat, and the goal was to become self-reliant. Giant wheat silos were built in 1978 to house reserves, and they became independent by 1984. The Saudi Grains Organization, or SAGO, estimated that over 700,000 metric tons of wheat were produced in the country in 2021 to 2022, which was enough to export. Over the years, grain production increased so much that the government had to put certain restrictions in place to preserve water resources. An increase in a single type of crop meant the rest of the industry also started flourishing, and Saudi Arabia eventually began exporting fruits, including watermelons, citrus fruits, and grapes. And while this happened, another industry we usually associate with Saudi Arabia also picked up speed. It was date production. This led to factories popping up across the land and a quick increase in exports. The country produced around 300 types of dates, with the International Trade Center revealing that the country exported over 1.54 million tons of dates in 2021 alone. But you'll be surprised to know what they did next. It's no secret that dates come with several health benefits and provide a lot of energy. Several tons of dates were used to contribute to alleviating food shortages around the world in the form of large donations. The donations were so much that Saudi Arabia became the second largest contributor to food aid in the UN with their foreign aid plan. In 2018, the country provided 4,000 tons of dates to the World Food Programme and another 3,000 tons to 30 countries worldwide. Of course, the country also provided other food resources which helped raise its international standing. But you'll be blown at the amount of planning that went behind turning the country into what it is today. One thing's for sure, the government must be applauded for supporting its people. The government of Saudi Arabia understood that they needed the help of people to transform the country and as such started putting policies to support local farmers. Since the country had access to capital, it didn't hesitate to use it. Eventually, farmers had access to resources that would help them start production in favorable conditions. The government provided interest-free loans and technical support to attract newcomers to the industry. Farmers also got access to cheap fuel, water, and power. Even the export of raw materials and machinery was duty-free. And then they turned to other relevant parties, creating benefits for investors. Foreign investors were exempted from paying taxes for over a decade, with changes to the policy in 2000 offering new incentives. The benefits provided to farmers and investors helped push the industry into a running start, and the government continued introducing farming policies to ensure constant improvement and sustainability. The Saudi Arabian Agricultural Bank provides interest-free loans. Flour mill organizations and grain silos were started as early as 1972. But wait till you hear how thorough the government's strategy was. Saudi Arabia's government saw that focusing on one area would not be smart for the country's future and focused on several areas simultaneously. First, highways and roads were improved to make transportation easier and increase efficiency in the agricultural industry. Next, several high-capital projects were started for local farmers to diversify the economy and increase the industry's size. And finally, the government saw that traditional crops wouldn't always be enough to retain their place in the industry. Thus, investments in research programs and collaborations between university farmers and scientists led to new crop varieties being created, and these were more resistant to damage and had a higher yield. If you want to learn more about amazing transformation projects undertaken by the government, remember to like and subscribe and hit the notification button at the end of the video. No matter what, you need ample water resources if you want the agricultural sector to flourish, and the government set their minds to doing just that. Projects in the 1970s led to large underground reservoirs of water, known as aquifers, being discovered. Several tube wells were drilled to provide large amounts of water to kickstart the industry. This also led to the development of Saudi Arabia's famous center pivot irrigation system, where the underground reservoirs were used to water fields directly using sprinklers attached to the tubes, which pulled up the underground water. This process creates the large circles of farmland you often see in photos and is made efficient because of the sprinklers, which ensure that water isn't wasted during irrigation. If this impressed you, wait till you hear about what they did next. Groundwater wasn't enough to meet the country's high demands, and experts estimated that it would only be enough to meet demands for the next 50 years. To remedy the situation, the Saline Water Conservation Corporation was established in 1974 to focus on one of the world's biggest and most expensive water resources, seawater desalination. With extensive capital available, it turned into the country's major water source. The first big plant started in early 2008, escalating into 27 desalination destinations in the country today. With 3 million cubic meters of water produced daily, it's enough to meet 70% of the population's demands. The country produced a total of 2,154 million cubic meters of desalinated water in 2021. But you'll be stunned to hear their final move to support the agricultural industry. Water is always in high demand, and when it looked like another water resource was necessary, the government turned to recycled water. Recycling plants were established in industrial hubs such as Riyadh and Jeddah using electric power. This water is currently used to irrigate fields and urban parks, and the government has high hopes for the project. The government aims to achieve complete recycling of wastewater by 2040. If achieved, it will reduce overall costs and energy consumption, creating another great feat for Saudi Arabia. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and leave a comment below. We'd love to hear your thoughts and feedback, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more valuable content like this. Hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a video. Thanks for watching.